Alright, well, we are back out here in the beautiful Gulf of Mexico with my good buddy Sleeping Spiro. He's set the anchor for me up on the front right now. So we're in about 19 to 20 feet of water. This is not great. It is typical Gulfy day right now, where you can kind of see the first like 5 to 10 feet in the water. But we'll see what it's looking like down there. Our last little adventure out on the Atlantic side looking for black grouper was pretty unsuccessful. I saw like 7 or 8 of them, and they all wanted absolutely nothing to do with me. The second I made any kind of move or eye contact, they were gone. They hit the sand and took off. Usually they like to stop and jump in a rock or something, and from there I'm able to get down and check that rock out and usually get a shot on them, but no dice this time. So we're hoping to get a little redo action in, and we're gonna do some gearing up. We'll see you in the water. Welcome back in the water. So I actually was doing a warm-up dive when this guy came over to check me out. The GoPros always make it look a little nicer than it is. It's pretty hazy on the bottom there. Once you get pretty even with it, it opens up a little bit. You probably have 15 and 20 foot visibility on the bottom, but from the surface looking down, it's only about like 15 feet maybe. See this nice hogfish come up. You know, in the water less than 5 minutes and already had a fish on. Always try for those stone shots. That was a little off the mark, unfortunately. I went in for a negative pressure dive, and I got to the bottom, and he's just staring at me, and it was too tempting. He was just hanging out. So the technique that I just mentioned is called a negative pressure dive. It's something a little bit more advanced in the freediving world, and it's just to activate your lungs and simulate you diving in a deeper depth. I highly recommend, if you're interested in it, to watch some videos explaining it better. And I do not recommend doing it without any proper training. It can get dangerous very quickly. It involves completely draining the air out of your body and then doing a dive with 0 air. So I had a buddy watching my back. I was pretty confident in it. Something that I just like to do when I start my dive days off. It gives your body a little warm-up and activates your mammalian dive reflex. There's a pretty decent little yellowtail down here on this crack, and I tried to get a shot on him, but because I had my gun fully loaded, I hesitated a little bit there. I've been going through spear shafts like absolute crazy this year, and they're about $110 a piece. So, you know, a little hesitant to shoot directly down into the rocks with them. And they are very, very spooky fish. The second they see you looking at them, they are not about it. They usually swim off the other way. The bait this day on these couple spots we checked were crazy. These are what's called thread herring, and that big school of fish off to my left, those are all Bermuda chubs. Unfortunately, there is little to no table value on those guys. You see a big Goliath I'm swimming with here. He's probably in the 100-pound club, if not more. I've only seen 1 or 2 people take Bermuda chubs, and usually they're completely gutted off the boat because they do not smell great when you put them in the cooler with other fish. And even gutted, they don't really smell that great. I've tried to use them for bait for fishing and other things, and man, they just don't do good. This spot was absolutely loaded with Goliaths. You see that big boy come flying out this side, and I was checking to see if there were any other grouper home in this rock, and got a little stuck there. But there was another grouper home. Unfortunately, it was the same flavor, the protected species flavor. I'm really unsure about how they're going to do it, but the state of Florida has actually opened up a permit for harvesting Goliath grouper. I have applied, my friends have applied. We'll see if it actually happens and it comes out. And I'm not sure if they're going to allow Goliaths to be taken via spear. It's going to be similar to like snook and redfish, where there's a slot where you can keep them, and they can be over and under that slot for minimum and maximum size fish. So I'm interested to see how that all shakes out. I'm sure there'll be some literature on it whenever they do put those permits out. You see some nice mackerels swimming through right here. These guys are called Cero mackerels. They're very, very good eating fish. Unfortunately, I didn't like that shot placement, so I just let him keep swimming. Really versatile as far as fish goes. They're really nice, white and flaky, unlike other mackerels that can be more oily, a little bit darker meat. I probably swam over these rocks 4 or 5 times over the course of this dive. It's like, man, there's some really, really good caverns down there, and you can see a black grouper go from one side to the other right there. Unfortunately for him, I spotted him. We almost left without checking these rocks as well. You know, maybe 10 feet off the back of the boat, so I didn't pay too much attention when we first jumped in. There was so much life with the bait and the chubs swimming through, and a lot of decent snapper swimming around, that I hadn't really given too much thought to picking through these holes and checking to see if anyone was home. This guy gets a little too curious. He pokes his face in that crack. Gives me a second to adjust. And I found my mark. So here it kind of looks like I'm pulling on the spear, but what I'm actually doing is pushing it down. He was shaking his head back and forth so hard that I wanted to make sure that those floppers were seated. I had no idea where I hit that fish. I just knew that I had connected to him. There's Sleeper with a nice Cero. The hardest part of ledge hunting is always the retrieve on these groupers. Usually when they're hit, they go ballistic down there and clouds up the area super well, so you just can't see in there, and unless you're supremely confident in your shot, it's just not advisable to just start pulling. A lot of times that leads to things like tear outs, and if you can't find that fish again, then you're just gravely injured a fish, and then he's, you know, trapped in the rocks. There's not a whole lot you can do there. Spotted a couple little lionfish on this rock, and at some point I swam back to the boat to grab the pole spear, and when I came back they were all gone. I didn't find a single one of them.
Hold on. I'm not 100% sure where I hit them, so I'm not trying to force it. We're just gonna let that dust settle for a minute.
Let me go throw this back over there.
All right.
Sleeper jumped down and checked it out, gave me a thumbs up that it was a good shot. There's actually 2 entrances to this hole, so He was able to go in there and look, give me an ID, and I follow behind him, check it out, and see that it was a great shot placement. See the pole spear hanging off my gun right there. So once I got his face moved up a little bit, I was able to get a hand in the gills and cleanly retrieve this fish from that rock. You can see all that bait just coming to see what's happening over here. Those are all what's called white grunts. They're usually a smaller variety with a small black dot on their tail. I skipped the footage of the braining and bleeding process there, but that fish was dispatched the moment he came out of that rock. While we're out and about, if I see any trash or anything, I try to pick it up. I've got a little pocket on the side of my wetsuit that's great for stashing little items. It's hard to see here, but I found a little stretch of fishing line and grabbed as much as I could off that rock and shoved it in my pocket real quick. And while I was doing that, a nice Zero came up, checked me out. These guys are super curious and they swim super fast, so they'll flick in, usually be pretty calm, and sometimes let you put a good shot on them. It wasn't one of my best shots, but it was a nice holding shot, mid-body. And unfortunately, I had to share my fish. Not a big fan of that. That Cuda hung out there. You can see him flashing his teeth at me, acting pretty aggressive with me. Usually when Cudas do something like that during the summer months, I just kind of let them be. The food chain is just a natural kind of reaction to a fish freaking out. They get a free meal out of it. But unfortunately for that guy, it is currently stone crab season. There's always room in the freezer for more bait, especially when it's free.
You get a hog? Nice one.
Sleep with a nice
I shot
hog.
a Zero, then I got Cuda'd, so if that Cuda comes back, he's coming with us.
The Cuda's still right there. So I throw one band on quickly, swim down, tried to get a shot on him. He eased right up out of my range, took off a little bit. I figured right there would be the last I saw of this guy, but you know, unfortunately they can be pretty territorial, especially after they've gotten a free meal. And he comes right back in. About a minute or two later, he came back in to check me out. That's unfortunately the last thing he ever did. That also was not a great shot placement, but you can hear him tear off some line on the reels. Usually I stay in the water to fight fish. Just in case sharks or anything come around, it's really advisable to stay in the water so you can see what's happening, and if a shark comes up, you're able to react to it and bully that fish away. But this guy is headed for the crab traps, so I was less concerned. I had the gaff ready for him as well. This is a really poor example of line management. I put the gun beside me and then just kind of draped all my shooting line over me as I was fighting this guy in. This was a mid-body shot. It wasn't a great headshot or a stone shot or anything, so he gave me a pretty good fight on trying to pull him in. It's a decent cuda, like maybe 3.5 feet, around 4 feet. But nothing goes to waste. Even when we're cleaning fish, we save the carcasses during the winter for the crab traps. So he is going directly from my freezer to back to the Gulf of Mexico to feed up some stone crabs. That's what's called a nurse shark. I don't know if I've had any of those in my videos before, but they will kind of stick their head in a rock and use it kind of as like a sleep mask over their eyes. They just like taking naps. They're pretty sleepy guys. They're like big saltwater catfish, honestly. They've got no teeth. They use plates and suction to kind of grind their food up, whatever they get. But a lot of times they're a good indicator that there's a pretty large cave right there. If they're taking a nap in it, there might be fish kind of hanging out in there with them, so I went down and check it out, unfortunately. So as I was just swimming around, kind of checking the rest of this spot out, I actually spooked a black grouper right here and didn't even realize it. I slowed that clip down a little bit so you could kind of see him go left to right. But I had already shot my grouper for the day, so he kind of got a free pass. If I'd have seen him, I maybe would have called sleeper over, but a lot of times those guys take off by the time your dive buddy gets there, so there's no real point. But sometimes these schools of Bermuda chubs will hold other game fish, like there's a few small yellowjacks swimming in with them. This guy got pretty spooky with me the second I pointed at him, so he got a free pass, lived to swim another day. Diving these spots in the Gulf is always really cool. There's so much life happening around you. Lots of bait fish, different varieties of other fish that we don't target necessarily, like barjacks, things like that. There's another beautiful hogfish swimming with those Bermuda chubs. This video was shot one day before the hogfish closure, so it was really nice to see a lot of these big guys just out there swimming, and gonna be ripe for the picking for next year, hopefully. The population had seen a serious downturn in the last few years, so it's really nice to see them. We see these guys taking naps as well, similar to what the nurse sharks do. They just find a rock, kind of stick themselves up in there, and just take a little snooze. The last few dives I've been on, we've seen an absolute crazy amount of turtles. If you watch my intro back, you can actually see a turtle poke his head up over my shoulder. A sleeper with a nice black. It's really crazy how this fish changed color too, where he hit it in the spine. Gave it that piebald appearance. Front of the fish was ghost white and the back was still brown. While we're sitting there on the surface talking, I noticed this spear shaft that had been obviously bent out pretty bad, left by somebody.
take us back to the boat with you?
Can I?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can try.
Sleeper agreed to take this back to me, and I thought it would be a little funny. Just use that grouper as a little holster. Stick it in the gill plate. So I left this next clip in. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, this is our last spot. You can tell the viz is much worse than the other ones that we were diving, and it was actually much shallower. There's only about 15 feet down to the bottom right here. This is one of my snapper spots I like to hit on my way in. We're here every month and a half or so. I don't like going too often, but it is nice to just have a spot to stop at on the way in if you don't have quite enough fish. I had a nice hogfish and a nice grouper in the box, so we weren't hurting for it, but we figured why not make one last stop. You know, some of my camera equipment is a little older. This was shot on a GoPro Hero 9, and I, after the fact, found out that the SD card that I was using can sometimes lead to malfunctions and other issues. They have updated the cameras, and it's something that you can do just plugging the camera into a computer and updating the software, but unfortunately I was unaware of that at the time. So about 5 minutes into the spot, my camera malfunctioned and I was unaware. But during that malfunction time, we had a pretty large shark swim through. Once the frame kind of freezes, it switches to audio only. So you can hear the spear gun go off and the reel getting peeled out with the line. But unfortunately, none of the video stayed. What happened was a school of about 10 to 15 cobia came in with this very large shark. We didn't see the shark at first. It was just me in the school, and Sleeper had started the day saying how badly he wanted to shoot a cobia. I've shot a couple already this year, so I really wanted him to get one of those fish and experience the cobia rodeo, as it were. So right there, the audio froze, and I'm just gonna let this roll.
Sleeper! 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 Bull shark swimming around, and there's a big shark, and he's got like 20 of them on his back. He just swam through.
So as you can see, I was yelling pretty loudly for him to try to come over to get a shot on one of these fish. Unfortunately, it didn't work out for him. I got my fish to the boat, gutted him out, and we jumped back in to see if we could try to get that shark to come back in. And he ended up swimming through, and it ended up being about a 12-foot lemon shark. Right here is after I dealt with the fish, put him in the fish box, and I'm not sure why it started recording again. It quickly freezes back out, but there's always next time. We've got some camera upgrades happening very soon, so the next video will be released on Christmas. I'm doing 2 this month, so we hope to see you there. Thank you guys so much for watching and supporting the channel. We're up to around 44 subscribers now, and the number keeps growing. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for watching. See you on the next adventure.